everybody, Jeff Stone here with another episode of MagicReview.com. We're looking at classic innovations, the magic of Dave Chandler here. It's his lecture notes. And, well, this is a weird one. As you know, I try not to focus too much on the effects. And, what I think of the effect is irrelevant. It's going to be up to you if you like the effect. But when it's a book full of effects, I have to sort of talk about the effects. So I'm going to give you a brief rundown of what the effects are so you have a sense of what you're getting yourselves into. And then we'll talk more in depth about the methods and the product quality and stuff like that. So there's 12 effects in here. You can see the list there of them. And basically they're all, the title is Classic Innovations. That would imply that they're innovations and, modifications of classic effects. The opening is called A Tribute to J.C., as in J.C. Wagner. It's a modification of one of J.C. Wagner's effects. There's a 4-card flash production, which is just an ace production or any kind of 4 of a kind. There's a coin that fuses to a business card. There's a snap change cleanup. There's a handling pointer on sleeving. There's a signed bill into Sharpie cap. There's it's called the crossbody ditch technique, which is basically a way to you vanish something and then you're holding it out, and it's a way to ditch it. Then there's AACAAN, almost any card at any number. Then there's a top card displacement technique, which is an alternative for top change. And then there's a handling of the everywhere and nowhere plot. And there's a finale for card warp. And there's a finale for ring on string. So that's what you're getting. So nothing new. And to be frank, to say that it's innovative, I think you're pushing the boundaries of the definition of that word a little bit. I will say that the impossible warp, which is the ending for the card warp, it's how to restore the torn pieces. That's pretty unique and different, and could be added to any just torn and restored kind of an effect. And after you hear everything I have to say about this book, you may still think that one effect alone might be worth getting this book, because it is probably the most clever concept and simplicity as far as the method goes. Pretty simple and straightforward. So, before we get into the rest of this, let me give you 2 disclaimers. Number one, it's like 5:30 something in the morning, something like that. I haven't been to bed yet, and I could not get my lighting to work. I've been working on it for like an hour, and so the green screen's going to look okay, but my face is all washed out, and I just can't get the lighting to work. That's something I've struggled with for years on this. So sorry about that, guys. So if this is not standard up to par, Jeff, that you're used to, I apologize. Anyway, so the methods. The methods they've stood the test of times. They're pretty common things. His variation on the sleeving technique, it's almost the same thing that you learn in Bobo. It's a little bit awkward to get into that position that he's showing you in the book here, but it is a little bit. I'd say it's a slight advancement in the art of sleeving. That it makes the sleeving a little bit easy, but it's so familiar that I don't know that it's really anything that new. It's very familiar feeling. The snap change cleanup. Very awkward, and we'll talk more about that awkwardness in a minute. The crossbody ditch was there's a lot of this back and forth business during the handling, which I think with a little bit of thinking on your part and figuring you could probably clean that up yourself, because the concept's smart. It's a way to ditch something that you're holding out. The top card displacement technique, I thought was the method was simple and it's clever, and it's a good alternative for a top change, that if you're not comfortable with a top change. The finale for the linking or the ring on string, what's nice about that, it's simple, and it uses a move that you already know probably if you do a ring on string, and I'm talking like finger ring on string. But it ends with something that you give away to the spectator that they will use and keep and remember you by. So that's valuable. And then, as I mentioned, the torn and restored thing for the restoration for card warp. Again, all the methods for the most part are pretty solid. The problem comes in is the product quality. For one, okay, look at this. Oh, I'm pinching it. This. Let me open it this way. There you go. Just the act of opening the book and on the table and flattening it so that I can read it causes the pages to completely dislodge from the binding. So the book is falling apart after one reading. It's not like, I mean, I've had this thing since December of 2014, so like 8 months, 9 months, but it sat on my shelf. I didn't do anything with it until recently. I'd flipped it open and flipped through it and read some stuff here and there over the past few months, but it's basically one usage and it's already fallen apart. That's product quality problem number one, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is the write-ups. Honestly, this is one of the most frustrating reading experiences I've had in a long time. Oddly enough, there were no typos, grammar errors, spelling errors, punctuation errors, or anything like that I could find, which usually when I review a book, it's riddled with that. No matter who wrote the book, there's always a ton of that stuff in there. I didn't find any in this one. But the write-ups were very confusing. I bullet pointed page by page in the written review the problems that there were. But I'll tell you some common ones. They say left hand when they mean right hand. They say right edge of the packet when they meant the left edge of the packet. It's very common nomenclature that this is the top of the deck, this is the bottom of the deck. When you turn the deck upside down to avoid confusion, they refer to this as the back of the deck and this is the face of the deck. You never refer to this as the top of the deck. It just becomes confusing. Well, they go back and forth between sometimes this is the top and when they say top in the context, I'm like, well, maybe they meant this part of the deck, part of the packet or whatever. It was confusing. It was very unclear in a lot of places. There was more than one case where the photograph was different from what the written text said. And again, I bullet pointed every single one of these in there. There's a lot of assuming that you know a lot of moves, which on some levels I can let that slide. I mean, where do you draw the line? Do you have to in every single book explain what a pinky break is and explain what a riffle shuffle is and what an Elmsley count? I mean, where do you draw the line? I get that that's a little bit of a gray area. But there's some moves in there like an Erdnase break, for example. That's not a common move, and it's one that I've never used. I read it in Erdnase 100 years ago, and I'd forgotten exactly the handling on it, and so I had to go dig up Erdnase. And the thing is, it's not like in Erdnase it just says, here's the Erdnase break. In fact, I couldn't find it in Erdnase. Now that I think about it, I had to go Google it, which I'm not a fan of having to do that. I wish it wasn't out there, but in this case it was helpful. So you see the problem. But then it explained other moves like an Ascanio spread, and it was just weird which ones they chose to explain, which ones they didn't choose to explain. But I have 2.5 pages of notes of errors that are problems that make reading this book extremely frustrating. So here's the part where I feel bad, and I want you guys to know this is not... My job is to tell you the truth, guys, and sometimes that's hard. And this is one of those times where that's hard, not because I want to lie to you or anything like that, but because I've been working with David Breath, and there's 3 Davids involved here somehow. There's a Chandler, a Breath, and there's another one that was somewhere. Very confusing to me. I'm not sure who's what or what's who. But on Facebook, David Breath has been the guy that's been asking me when I'll review this. He's the one who sent it out to me and everything. I think it's he's the marketing guy behind it or whatever. And he's been very patient with me, and we've built a little bit of a rapport through Facebook, and he seems like a nice guy. and he's been asking, when are you going to review this, when are you going to review this, and now here I am giving it not a glowing review. Sorry, man, I got to call it like I see it, if I know that's doesn't make, if I've ruffled a few feathers over the years doing this. So anyway, bottom line is just go read the written review. This is one where I really want to make sure you read the written review, because I bullet point these problems, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot. Like I said, I had 2.5 pages of written notes on this, and the fact that the book has fallen apart, and there's several. There's some that are so hard to explain the confusion or the problem. Let me just read one here, and maybe this will give you a sense of it. This is on that card warp thing, which is, by the way, again, it's a really good move. So if you're, I can't read it without exposing, sorry. Basically, you're in a situation where it tells you to have the spectator hold a card. And then it tells you, the next thing is, now, the card that they're holding, tell them to fold it in half. And then it walks through you, the magician, folding it in half and doing a secret thing to it. But all the while, supposedly, the spectator's holding the card. And so there's just this weird confusion that happens a lot. That kind of thing happened over and over. There are some things where it says, you have your hand in a position like this, and it says, rotate your wrist clockwise. Well, like that? I mean, this is clockwise. Or even if it says counterclockwise. I mean, what is that? What I think it was trying to say was to turn your wrist over. That's not clockwise. That's to the right, or turn, whatever. So there's a lot of confusing language, and it was very, very frustrating to read. I'll stop rambling about it. Classic Innovations. There are some good things in here that are, other than the fact that the methods are hard to understand, once you get through it, and you'll kind of figure it out as you go, you'll be like, oh, they probably meant left hand here. I get it now. And you'll work your way through it, and you'll finally be like, oh, I think I got it. If you can get through that, for the most part, the methods, I think, are solid. I'm a little bit wishy-washy on the cleanup of the snap change, because it's very, the way it's written, it's very awkward, and it's not as angle proof as they say it is in the book. At least the way it's written, it's not. But for the most part, the methods are solid. So if you liked the effects that I mentioned, and you don't mind the frustrating reading experience, there are some gems to be mined from this book. But with all the problems, I cannot give it a super great rating. So 2.5 stars, stone status of Grubble. Yes, there are some gems to be mined from the rubble, and it's a physical rubble. The book's falling apart, and the metaphorical rubble. Anyway, it's time for you guys to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and listen to the random iTunes song of the moment, which is the Bee Gees theme from Jamie McFeeters. I don't even think I know that song. It's off the Spicks and Specks album. It's just one of those albums I have that I listen to occasionally, and that's one of the tunes from it. I'll put a link to that in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Tune in next time, where I'll be reviewing Cube 3 by Steve Brundage. Looking forward to that one, folks. Until then, thanks for watching. Peace out.